So when you want to solve a problem, and it can be any kind of problem. It can be something from school, it can be something that you're working on for a project, it can be an essay that you're writing, it can be an artwork that you're working on. Whatever problem it is, it always requires intellectual patience. And I want to talk about how you can foster this intellectual trait so that solving problems becomes like a game for you. And it will no longer be about gaining a perfect result, but rather about going through the problem and solving it. The process will become the result for you. So, what exactly is intellectual patience? At its core, intellectual patience is a skill. And like any skill, it's based on a system. So by mastering the system, you're essentially mastering the skill and you're becoming intellectually patient. What is the system in place when it comes to intellectual patience? So let me first give you an example to figure out what's causing you to be impatient in the first place. So imagine yourself reading a challenging section out of a book or an article, whatever it is that you're engaging with. Pay attention to what makes you want to give up on it. By questioning yourself in this way, you will soon realize that all of this impatience that rises up is because you're frustrated and confused about the subject you're studying or the problem you're solving. You're basically facing a block and you don't know how to find your way around it. And you're just gonna give up because your brain is telling you that this is useless and you're wasting energy on something that is not solvable. And that discourages you from exploring the concept any further. So when you come face to face with that block, the first question you need to ask yourself is, what's the smallest possible step I can take? And to put it more tangibly, in the case of solving a problem, ask yourself, what is the smallest possible question I need to focus on right now, and try to block out all the other parts of the problem just so that you have one specific direction to go down to and you're not overwhelmed by other parts of it, which is going to eventually make you confused. So this is the very definition of focus. Focus means that you're narrowing your attention down to one specific stream of ideas and then you're taking it from there. And the more constricted it is, the better it will flow and the more productive it's gonna be because you're gonna go farther because your path is much narrower and you have one specific question. So what are the practices that can help us cultivate this trait of patience in our mind? So this one practice is a very easy one. You can start with this one because it doesn't take as much willpower as the other practices that I'm going to mention. So what you do is to choose a space first because you need a space that doesn't have much distraction, a silent environment, so that you can listen to something for a long period of time and not get distracted. Or you could put on a noise canceling headphone so that you don't hear the noises in your environment. You want to find a video of a lecture on anything that you're interested in. For example, you want to learn about your brain, so you find a neurology lecture, but you have to make sure that it's a very long lecture. It's more than 1 hour, and if it's more than 2 hours, then even better. You want to train your patience in this process. And as you're watching the lecture, you have to keep in mind that this is gonna be something that you're gonna have to write and recreate by yourself, but in a more summary-like way after you watch it, so that every single point that the lecturer is making is gonna be completely recorded by your memory because you're paying your full attention to it, because you know that you have to recreate it after you watch it. And this requires a lot of patience because you have to sit there for a long time and take it one point at a time. And that's the definition of focus that I just mentioned, which is like you focusing only on the next step. And in this case, you're only focusing on the point that is already being mentioned, and you're not going backward to remember what was said before this point, because then you would lose track of the point that is already being mentioned. And listen, you have to also have this rule, which is that you're not gonna rewind. You're not gonna go back. If you miss a point, that's it. You do not want to go back. maybe you're gonna fill in the gap yourself, but that's the only way you can make sure that your attention is 100% on it. You're not relaxed in this way. There's no relaxation here. You have to be 100% committed to it. But if the whole lecture is more than an hour, then you can take a break and come back to it later just to refresh your mind and rest a little bit in between. So let's say you finish watching the lecture. Now it comes time to recreating the content of that lecture for yourself in your own notebook. And it might sound a little bit boring at times, but you have to plow through it. Remember, we're trying to exercise our intellectual patience. So what you're gonna do is to try to figure out what was said in the beginning of the lecture, how it started, and where did it lead. And you have to put the bullet points in order, like what was the first point and then what came after that till the end of the lecture. And if you could do that, you have probably listened to it carefully and with full attention. And that's how you figure out if you actually understood what was said in the lecture and if you were present in it. So that's the first practice that we all need to incorporate on a weekly basis at least, because unless you train your patience, you're probably gonna grow impatient and that's not gonna be good. Another practice we need to adopt is reading a very dense and complex scientific article. Even if you don't understand it, just making an effort to at least understand the literal meaning of each sentence can be a great improvement over skipping the whole thing and not doing it all together. So you start reading it, and the first thing you do is to just understand the literal meaning of it. You don't need to figure out what it means in the grand scheme of things. Like, you don't need to connect it to something else because you have nothing else. You're reading something out of nowhere. It's a scientific paper that has nothing to do with you, but you're doing it because you want to train your patience, and that's the point. So as you're trying to understand the literal meaning of each sentence, you might come across terms that you do not understand. What you're gonna do is to look up each and every term that you come across, each and every confusing word that you do not know the meaning of, or at least in that context doesn't really have any meaning for you. You're gonna look it up and then read the whole sentence over again. You see, we're going slow here. We're not trying to skim through the whole text just to figure out what it's all about. We're rather taking the exact opposite approach, which is trying to figure out what each and every tiny little components are and then put them together maybe after all of it has been looked over. So you have to tell yourself that it's not about finishing it. It's about increasing your capacity to sit through the pain of confusion. And if you get comfortable with that pain and in fact make it your goal to reach to a point of confusion, then instead of looking for a relief, you're going to voluntarily seek out the challenges. You're going to be selecting hard text to challenge your mind because you figured how rewarding it is to have an aha moment after banging your head against the wall for 10 minutes. It turns into a total game for you. Just like how rewarding it is to play a 10-minute chess and think so hard about all the possible positions and tactics, learning will also become something you look forward to and you cannot wait to get to the challenge. It gets to a point where you see all of it as a thinking game. You get to make progress so fast because then it's not even about finishing or getting a certain score or being more knowledgeable in that subject. No, none of that. The pursuit of understanding will become so rewarding that you forget you wanted a tangible result in the first place. You fall in love with the game of thinking, and that is all you need in order to gain intellectual patience. And this is not going to happen in one instant. You can't just expect yourself to be able to sit through 10 pages of an article that you don't know anything about. Instead, you are going to incrementally increase the load. You're going to start with 1 page a day, and then you get to 2 page, and then 3 page, and then it really goes up as you do it more and for longer. So that's the second practice that is so vital, and I think it's important for all of us to try out. And there's going to be a lot more habits that I'm going to be talking about maybe in the next video because there are so many. And I think your intellectual patience is wearing out, so I'm just gonna finish it right here. Thank you for watching, and let me know if you think these two habits are something you're already doing or if you think they're useful, and I'll talk next time.